So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining today's virtual conference. My name is Hardik Vaidya and I'll be your host for the day. Dun & Bradstreet in association with Locus and AWS is glad to welcome you all to this live webinar on the pertinent topic, integrating cloud security controls for future-ready businesses. So before we begin, I request everyone to please take a moment and go through the guidelines that will be displayed on your screen in just a moment. So please have a look there. There they are. So we encourage you to ask more questions in the session. We request you to please type your queries in the question section. They will be taken up in the Q&A session that is scheduled later. A couple of tips though. We want to know more about you. So please mention your name and the company name when you post a question. You can also mention the person that will be directing the question to. So let's move forward and see the agenda that we have lined up in front of you. Let's move on to the agenda. And let's also see the fantastic lineup of speakers that we have here today. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank everybody for being a part of this virtual session today. So without further ado, let's kickstart with the opening speaker of the day. I would like to invite Mr. Rakesh Kotian, Vice President, Software Engineering at Dun & Bradstreet to speak in this session. Over to you, Mr. Kotian.
Thank you, Hardik. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak with every one of you today. I'm not sure if this virtual background sometimes screws up the lighting out. I think I'm feeling more dark, but anyways, what I do in Dun & Bradstreet, for all of your information, I run the Solution Center for Dun & Bradstreet, which is based out of Hyderabad. Prior to coming into Dun & Bradstreet, I've spent majority of my career in investment banking space. Now, when it comes to cloud, and cloud is something which comes into consideration in all different aspects of technology. I mean, whether it is managing legacy applications or designing a brand new application, or just simply looking at your cost. Most of us in the technology field will always get into these kind of decision-making parameters when we talk about scalability, resiliency, we talk about telemetry management, or we talk about security. Cloud comes into play. Now, in the last 5 to 10 years, what I have seen personally, not only in my past experiences, but also in Dun & Bradstreet, is the majority of the cloud platform, where to an extent where it is running mission critical applications globally, the wide acceptance that is there. But even then, technologists like us still have questions, still have certain concerns about it, right? So here in today's session, we would be able to talk about some of those aspects, like why security is important. I'll just take few minutes to just give a bit of the examples in my own journey. While I was in JP Morgan and we were debating about cloud technology, JP Morgan made an announcement. The CEO of the company made an announcement that we want to be recognized as a cloud technology company. Now, that's a big and a bold statement to make when applications are not cloud ready, right? So there are various decision-making aspects that we have to go through. What kind of cloud? Private, public, hybrid? Do you want to be cloud native? Do you want to be cloud hybrid? You hear all these different terminologies. But in reality, what you're looking at is whether your application can go into cloud as is and for what reason you want to move it. Do you want to move it purely because cost is a factor? Or do you want to move it because you want to first go into cloud and then start looking into how do you basically start taking some of the advantages of cloud? Cloud in today's world, and also what I've seen in Dun & Bradstreet, has gone to the extent where security is taken into consideration very seriously. The advantage that everyone should note out here is that we all worry about security, access management, making sure that our clients have confidence that our application is taking care of all of these. But remember one thing, the cloud providers are also in that business of making sure that their platforms are secure. So you have double assurance in that way. So it's an added advantage. You just have to understand how that comes into play. Right? Now, when I came into Dun& Bradstreet and when I was looking at how cloud, in this particular case, AWS, was implemented, I was amazed and impressed. Because when you look at Dun& Bradstreet's capability in managing data, right, the humongous amount of data, and we call ourselves a data company, right? It's not an easy task of getting data onto cloud. Technology complexity apart, you also have to make sure that the confidentiality of your clients are maintained and it is accessed properly, the speed at which it can be accessed. So if you look at cloud, there are different offerings that are there. I mean, you typically talk about infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, but it has gone much beyond that. People are now saying function as a service, API as a service, or analytics as a service, big data as a service. So it allows you to basically do a plug and play in your architecture, right? Few of the other points that to take into consideration in this current situation that we all are in, security becomes even more important. Why? Because we are now pretty much virtual. World has gone in a virtual mode. Clients are virtual. Our offices are virtual. Our workforce are virtual. Everyone is now connecting via some virtual mechanism, right? You connect via VPN to your office, and from there you access your infrastructure, but you still are at risk when you're connecting from home or remotely, and same with the clients too. So it's even more important to understand how security comes into play with respect to cloud and with respect to access management, right? So typically, when I, as a developer, always wanted to have access to production. Why do I want access to production? Simple, because if there's a problem, I need to solve it faster. But in our regulated world today, where you have to safeguard your applications and your client, you don't need, you don't have to have access. So how do you promote faster troubleshooting? How do you promote faster log management for making sure that you're getting the right level of analytics? Pretty much nowadays, cloud gives you all those kind of solutions out of the box. So the other important point that I do want to highlight is that when you're looking at cloud and security, you also take into consideration your disaster management planning. And in a way, we are in that mode in the current world. And if you see, businesses are still running. If you see the recent economic indicators that are coming up, many of the countries are experiencing a V-shaped economic recovery, which means that the pace at which we are recovering is much faster, which means there is even a more demand of having access to newer functionalities, more clients, more virtual connectivity. There's a lot of realization that has come in that when you're in the virtual world, you can do a lot more that you were not able to consider. And to be honest, even I was a bit of that kind of a person in the past. They say, no, it is impossible to work from home, be virtual, and run a business, right? In the current world, it is totally different. You can be a small scale, small industry, small company, a medium company, or a big company, or a massive enterprise undertaking. Cloud is going to come there. Now, I spoke about cost. Now, why cost is important? Because obviously you need to make sure that you are efficient enough to manage your IT costs so that you maximize your revenue and your profitability. But when you're running your own data centers, your own infrastructure, you're physically restricted by how fast you can scale. In the current world that we are in, I'm sure all of you are aware of it, you can spin up infrastructure by just click of a button. You just make sure you have all your parameters mentioned, what your compute capacity is mentioned, and then you can spin it off. But the point that I would also want to bring out is that when you do that, you also take into consideration how your application behaves, what compute capacity it needs, and how efficient it is in terms of architecture, right? When you take an application in as mode into cloud, and then you start to decompose it. What we did, and I did personally, was first I did, okay, I'm not going to take an aggressive approach. I might take an hybrid approach. So I first decomposed my application into microservices architecture. And I put that into my virtual server configuration, which allowed me to basically get a lot of telemetry data as to how my application will behave if I had to go onto cloud. So I hope you guys will be able to get some of the details today as to how security, cloud go hand in hand, and how your applications can become more future ready and take the advantage. And remember one thing, cloud will not stop. It's still going to start evolving, and it gives you a lot more flexibility in how you want to manage your cost too. And I don't want to steal thunder from my distinguished speakers today. I'm too also going to look forward to hear from both our distinguished speaker today and take some more insights. It's a learning process for me as well. uh, I hope all of you have a great session today and keep the questions coming. We are here to answer your questions. With that, I hand it back to Hardik for the rest of the session.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kotin, for setting the tone of the session today. Lots of things to look forward to. Now, we would like to know each one of you a little better. That is you, our audience is a little better. So before we move on to the next speaker, we would request you to please cast in your polls displayed on a screen right now. I request every one of you, each one of you who's attending the session, our speakers as well, to please participate in the poll and ensure we get 100% on the two wonderful questions that we have on our screen. That's right, you have a time limit of 1 minute. And the first question is, do you currently run any workloads on the cloud? So you have three options: yes, yes, but only testing it. And third is no. And the second question is, what will give you the confidence to build on AWS? And those are the four options. I request every one of you to please ensure that you cast your poll in. 15 more seconds to go. In case you haven't done yet, please ensure you've got your poll in. That's it. The time's up. And let's move forward. We also have the results that are shown up on the screen in just a moment. And there it is. So 40%, 30, 20. And on the second question, 40, 20, 20, and 0. Fantastic. All right. So let's move forward. And with this, our next speaker, please join me in welcoming Mr. Karan Desai, Senior Solutions Architect at AWS. Welcome, Mr. Desai, and over to you.
Hey, thank you for the introduction, Hardik, and happy to be here with all of you. So if you can hand me over the presentation, right, so I can share my content here and we can get started. Okay, so welcome everyone to this session, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about how cloud security works and some myths and realities about it, so you can make informed decisions about, how do you want to approach moving to the cloud or building more on the cloud. A little bit about myself. My name is Karan Desai. I'm a solutions architect at AWS currently in Mumbai. I have worked with AWS for over 5 years right now, and my role is basically to help customers who are new to the cloud or who are already building things on the cloud make the right decisions, make the right informed decisions, select the right services, architecture patterns, design patterns to build what your business requires. As a solutions architect, that's what I have done for hundreds of customers already, and looking forward to working with some of you as well, if you are in this journey as well. For this particular session, I'm going to focus mostly on the security part, but based on the survey results, and some of you are just in the early phases of cloud adoption or not running anything on the cloud at all, I want to spend just a few minutes talking about why people do consider AWS, right? A lot of times the question that first starts is, why do I even need to move to AWS, or why do I choose AWS among the cloud providers? So what is the initial idea of cloud? People think of cloud at a very high level is that everything that I want to do in a data center, I am going to be able to do it in the cloud, but now I don't own the data center, or a co-location facility, but instead somebody else like AWS owns the data center, maintains the servers and maintains the storage and networking and everything. and I'm going to be able to move my things from here over there and start running there. At a high level, while this is true that yes, all cloud providers at the end of the day are functionally data centers which run several different services, the real value of AWS, of moving your applications on AWS, comes when you think of AWS as beyond just somebody who provides you servers, right? AWS today has over 200 different managed services that are available for several different kind of use cases that you can directly plug and play your applications in. So this saves you the effort of having to rebuild something that somebody else has already built. Here in this case, somebody else being AWS with the worldwide expertise of building that for 20 years now, and directly plug your applications into it and start running fast and innovate much faster. Right? So if you look at this at a high level, this is a map of the kind of services that AWS offers. If you look at the bottom here, you see the compute storage, database, networking, content delivery. That's what typically cloud service providers or colo providers used to be previously. But then there is this huge mountain on top of that, right? We talk about analytics, we talk about machine learning, we talk about services for applications for running very specific kind of business applications, whether you're talking about running functions or serverless or containers, or even doing things like media, or you want to do some social network, or you're running some financial applications and you want to do big data analytics. For a lot of these things, there are already ready to use services available. And when you start using these services to plug into your application, that's where you're really taking advantage of the cloud, right? Now, one question that comes in when we show this to a lot of new businesses is that this is great, but then what about the security of all of this, right? How do I, feel secure and safe that what I'm doing it the right way. I am making sure that I am in terms with the regulations that I have to be with. I am making sure that my data is not getting compromised. So how do we evaluate security when it comes to using the cloud services, which is beyond just taking a server and locking it down and adding a firewall on top of it? So that is what we are going to talk about in the next few minutes. And just to give a quick idea of why businesses in India and across the world have basically been adopting AWS at a large scale today, we are currently at almost a 40% year-over-year growth of adoption among customers in India and across the world. The first thing obviously is experience. AWS has been the first public cloud, to launch these services way back in 2006. So for 15 years, AWS has seen the good, bad, and ugly of what works and what does not work on the cloud. How do we need to architect things? How do we need to design things for failure, design for security? And all of this experience, you get to tap into it today now, which comes with the service breadth and depth that we have built based on those 15 years. Uh, and at the same time, this is not ending anytime soon. The pace of innovation, if you see today, every single year, you will find that AWS is going to launch about 1,000 different feature enhancements to existing services or new services, which solve specific business problems so that you don't have to build things from scratch, right? And you can take advantage of them. Which also gets deployed worldwide, right? Including in India, AWS currently runs 25 different geographic locations within which there are 80 different availability zones. An availability zone is nothing but one or more data centers that are separated from other data centers to be on a separate floodplain, to be on a separate ISP, to be on a separate power supply. So this gives you two things. One is your resiliency, that you can build applications that are safe from natural disasters or a wire cut or a network level problem. And also it enhances your security, that you are not putting all your eggs in one bucket, right? You are not putting all your applications in a single data center. And then if that data center catches fire, all of your applications are burnt. You don't have to live that way, right? You can spread out your applications across multiple different data centers and deliver it to your end users through a network of over 200 edge locations where the content can be cached and delivered from. So this allows you to build some very highly resilient applications. The last point here is kind of unique among software vendors that you see in the market, is that the AWS pricing philosophy has been that whenever we are able to scale up and reduce our own price of delivering a service, we pass on that cost savings to the customers proactively without having to ask for it. So far, since AWS started, there have been 79 price reductions in services. This just came proactively that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to sign a contract. You don't have to commit to anything. Just by being on AWS, when AWS finds a way to save our own cost, we pass that on over to customers. So you can save your cost and put that money towards more innovation. Right? And all of this comes with the vast ecosystem, which we are going to talk about in the later part of the presentation, that there are thousands of partners and marketplace providers and third-party integrators that tap into the AWS ecosystem so that you are never alone in what you are doing on your cloud journey, right? And specifically talking about India, AWS currently has the data centers in and around Mumbai in 3 different availability zones. We have a separate region, completely independent, coming in Hyderabad also, which will be live by this time next year, if you want to spread out your applications in multiple different geographies. And this is constantly being invested in, and AWS has been expanding the footprint in India. So you don't have to worry about the idea that AWS or Amazon is a US centric company. They may not care about what's happening in India. We are actively evaluating and constantly investing our presence in India and reaching out to customers in India. So you will have that support from AWS going forward as well. Now, that being said, let's focus on the real issue at hand today, right? All of this is great. Okay, AWS has its advantages. But the question that I get asked a lot as a part of my daily job is, what about security in the cloud? How can I trust that AWS or cloud provider is secure? In my co-location or in my on-premises world, I know that my servers are sitting next to me. I can touch and feel them, and I know this is my firewall, this is my server. I put a lock outside it at night. My data is secure. What about that in the cloud? Right? The myth around this is that the cloud is possibly less secure than what I can do on premises. The reality, if you think about it, is actually quite the contrary. You get to benefit from AWS's security at scale, right? What does this mean is, AWS worldwide is building applications and building infrastructure that support some of the most mission critical secure workloads in the world that you can think of. Everything from space programs for NASA to government data to financial institutions to banks to payment gateways, to educational institutes to media services. So when AWS builds the infrastructure, it is built to support that highest level of regulated workloads. And when you join in to build your applications on AWS, you essentially get to inherit all of those global security and compliance standards that may not be possible for you to invest in as an independent, company running your own data centers. So you take advantage of that economies of scale. You also get to scale with superior visibility and control because AWS is going to offer you a variety of monitoring tools and alarms and ways to give constant visibility into what is happening in terms of security on your environment, whether it's in terms of data, whether it's in terms of identity, who is accessing your environment, is someone trying to DDoS your environments? All of these kind of things are 24/7 monitored by dedicated teams at AWS whose entire job is maintaining security. And you get to tap into their expertise and the services that they build. Uh, you also get to basically work on a platform that has the highest standards for privacy and data security. And this comes in the form of compliances that AWS has to pass to run those mission critical workloads, right? For example, Amazon, the retail site that you're so familiar with, does billions of transactions of people's credit card information, people's personal information about your addresses, your profiles. So that means that the whole platform has to be PCI compliant. You get that same PCI compliant when you are running on AWS as well. Amazon runs a media business, for example, Amazon Prime and Netflix and Hulu and all of them run on AWS, which means that AWS now has to be compliant with the standards that come from the media and entertainment industry, from the financial industry, from the healthcare industry. All of these are constantly auditing and evaluating the AWS platform and the applications built on that. So when they evaluate these things and the reports that they generate are then passed on to you, let's say you are a small company just getting started on AWS, you have access to all of these audit reports so that you can share it with your auditors as well, that look, this is how AWS is already secure and this is how we are built on AWS. Makes your auditing easier, right? You also get to automate and reduce your risk with deeply integrated security services. What this means is that AWS has a whole suite of security related services, which I will come to in the next 2 minutes, where you can essentially automate as much of your security response as possible. Because see, when something goes wrong in security, if it happens in the middle of the night, you don't want to depend on one person in your team getting a page and being waking up in the middle of the night to fix a port that was open, or to fix a security vulnerability. If those things are automated, that when something breaks, there is a code that it runs and fixes that right away, that reduces the dependency on humans and human errors. And then in addition to all of these, you get the ecosystem of security partners and solution providers, right? So that you are not dependent on just yourself or AWS for that matter. Let's say if you are already familiar with using Palo Alto Network, or you are familiar with using Trend Micro, or you are familiar with using Fortinet, you get to take all of their expertise also and put it on your AWS environment to add additional layers of security beyond what AWS themselves is going to provide you natively. Right? Now, one thing that really sets the tone of how security works on the cloud is what we call the shared responsibility security model. What this essentially means at a high level is that AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud as a platform, and the customer is responsible for the security in the cloud of what applications you're building on top of that platform. Now, what this means is the AWS half of the shared responsibility model is everything starting from the data center's physical security to the hardware security of the actual hardware racks that runs the servers and VMs on top of it, the compute storage, database, networking, and the software like your hypervisors or the things that you install like your operating systems like your Linux and Windows, all of which goes into your actual hardware and infrastructure is the responsibility of AWS, that AWS will take care of making sure that those things are secure. Now, on top of that, you will start building your applications, right? So when it comes to thinking about your data that you upload onto the cloud, or the access patterns, like who gets you access to your dev environment or the prod environment, how are you patching your servers? What are you doing at your application level? Does it need authentication? Are you sending it over HTTPS or HTTP? Are you using any application firewalls or not? And how are you storing the data? Is it encrypted at rest? Is it not encrypted at rest? Is it accessible to the world? Is it locked down? All of these things become the customer's responsibility in a shared responsibility model, simply for the fact that we as AWS cannot really constrain you or cannot really tell in advance how you are going to run your applications, right? Every one of you who is currently in this webinar, if you are going to build something on AWS, your application is going to be different from somebody else's, right? Which means that half becomes the customer's responsibility to secure. Now, if you are wondering at this point that if all of that is my responsibility and if AWS is not going to help with that, how do I secure my half of the shared responsibility model, right? Worry not, this is where the AWS suite of security services come into place, which you can use to actually build your security model around it, right? So the AWS security solutions basically fit into 6 wide categories, and I'm not going to go into each one of them because I will be talking till the end of the day today if we go into all of them, but just to give you an idea of how comprehensive security you can get on AWS. The first thing is identity and access management. That the most important thing is how do I actually control access to whatever I'm building, right? In terms of humans, in terms of other applications who access them, and lock it down. The second part is detection, right? Your security is only as good as your ability to detect when a breach happens. If you don't know something has gone wrong, you are never going to be able to fix it because you don't know something is wrong. So there is a whole variety of services that are available for detecting when something goes wrong in your environment, and and basically take next actions based on it. The third part is the infrastructure protection itself. When you when you spin up your servers, when you spin up your databases, when you run your applications, how are you going to do access control? How are you going to add firewalls? How are you going to basically control the data going in and out of it? All of that falls under the infrastructure protection services. Again, there is a list of different services available for doing that. The fourth part, and this is probably what is most important and makes people hesitant about going to the cloud, is data protection, right? What about my data? So one thing to remember here is that as a customer, you always retain 100% control on your data. AWS does not read your data. AWS does not use your data for analytics or ads or personalizations or anything. AWS does not share your data with anybody without your explicit approval, you know, and that too might be in the case of a legal requirement or something like that. And the way you protect all of these is by using the variety of data protection suite of services. The fifth part is incident response. Let's say you did your first four things right, but as our CTO Werner Vogels always says that anything that can break will always break. I mean, at the end of the day, we are all humans. Despite our best efforts, invariably it may happen that sometimes something goes wrong. At that point, how can you quickly respond to those events, fix your problem, what is going on, identify the root cause analysis, and be able to plug those root cause, based on this RCA, is where you get a bunch of services that will help you in doing the incident response. And on top of all of this is the compliance, right? And like I was initially talking about, that you get access to all the reports and tools about all the auditing that is already being done on the AWS environment. And you get to basically plug and play that things into your own audit requirements. Now, this is all great, and this comes with all of the security compliance programs that I was earlier talking about. That AWS is, works with all of these compliance agencies to get the platform certified already. So at this point, if you're thinking, okay, you know what, this is great. I mean, probably the security on AWS is fine, and I want to migrate my applications onto AWS and take advantage of all of this security and the way that you can design things comes into the picture. So then the difficult question is, how do I migrate my existing infrastructure to the cloud, right? If I decide that I want to use all of this. Typically what you find that this is not an easy job, because there are a bunch of migration challenges that come into moving your environment where it is already running in production into a whole new different world, right? Everything from the, the hardware to the people to the skills to the complex databases to the legacy applications. So to do all of these things, people normally adopt two different ways of going with their existing applications to the cloud. The first way of doing it is what we call a lift and shift thing, which means you literally take everything that you have in an on-premises world and you build a one-to-one replica of that in the cloud. That's the relatively easier way of doing it, that you take because you are familiar with what you are doing and you just push everything into the cloud. The downside of this, though, is that all the any kind of inefficiencies or problems that you might have in your on-premises world, you are bringing all of those inefficiencies into the cloud as well, which you will then work on modernizing. That is the phase two of modernization. That once you are on the cloud, once your core applications are running, now comes the time to re-platform and refactor your applications. Because like I was mentioning earlier, right, the real value of cloud comes in when you are able to use cloud with the cloud native applications and the ready to build services that are already offered by AWS, for example, instead of just treating AWS as another data center where I will run a bunch of servers. So that is where you get into the replatform and refactoring phase, where you are going to need assistance, which you will get from us and Locus as the partner who is also on this call. Right, and this is where the expansive ecosystem comes into the picture. That doing these things are difficult. We understand that. So you don't have to do all of that alone. You have access to this vast AWS partner network and marketplace, where we have people who have done this thing thousands of times in the past. We have the experience, we have the competency. Any kind of use case that you are building, whether you are building a banking application or a food delivery app or an enterprise app or an IoT service or a media service, whatever it may be, chances are we have already seen that in the past and we have already built that for someone in the past. So we can leverage all of that extensive experience that comes from AWS itself and from this vast ecosystem of partner network, and help you basically build your applications onto the cloud. So how do we do this? To understand this better, let's hear it directly from one of our partners, actually Locus, who is present here. So I'm going to hand this over to our speaker from Locus, and he'll talk about how migrations happen and how the AWS ecosystem helps you in that. So over to you, Hardik, and over to Locus.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Desai. Now, as you mentioned, I would like to invite and welcome Mr. Alok Pandey, Principal Consultant at Locus Enterprise Solutions Limited, to take the next step forward. Welcome, Mr. Pandya, and over to you.
Thank you, Hardik. Am I audible to you?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you very much for the confirmation. Is my screen visible as well?
Yes, it is.
Great. So, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Alok Pandey, working as a principal consultant at Locus Enterprise Solutions Limited. In the rainy season, we are talking about cloud, AWS cloud, right? So you have seen some discussion from Karan. He was talking about AWS, the security services. So now in next few minutes, I'll give a very quick summary about our organization, our strength. Then I'll talk about cloud adoption framework. Then cloud factory, how will you take your workload to the cloud? How will you use the application migration options, application migration services from AWS? And I will tell you how we help our customers protecting data and building a secure environment while working with customers on the side of shared responsibilities, what Karan discussed, and helping customers with managed services, cloud ops, and then I'll take you through two case studies and we'll discuss a use case to start with AWS Cloud. So as you can see on my screen, AWS Locus was founded in 2000 and help customers journey of digital transformation, data center consolidation, building and securing networks, big data and analytics, high performance computing, machine learning, building DR sites, and much more from various offices in India and for last few years, some customers in US as well. We are advanced consulting partner of AWS along with storage competency. We are public sector and well architected partner too for of AWS. We have 20 plus trained and cloud certified specialists. We are delighted to have over 150 customers or multi-domain experts at Knox Center, Hyderabad are monitoring and managing 10,000 plus cloud instances around the clock. Now I'll quickly talk about how AWS CAF, that is Cloud Adoption Framework, organizations to develop and execute plans to use AWS Cloud. So there are 6 perspectives of CAF, which are created by AWS professional team to help planning cloud adoption efficiently and effectively. Why I'm taking this topic today? Because you are intended to use AWS cloud to run your workload. You want to migrate your on-prem workload to the cloud. So if we talk about the 6 perspective, the very first perspective is for the business managers, budget owners, finance managers, who usually have a separate strategy for IT and business on-prem, right? But with the cloud, the business goals are integrated with IT. For example, switching to OPEX model from the CAPEX, linking the business to the consumption of services. So by using CAF, business managers and strategy stakeholders can see measurable benefits like TCO, ROI from cloud adoption faster and with less risks. The second perspective is the people, right? HR and talent management team to evaluate and prepare team to migrate and manage cloud, create an incentive model to retain and attract talent. So these are the guidelines which CAF provides to the users from business and manager business perspective and people perspective. Third is the governance. So governance to manage and measure business outcomes through portfolio management, program management, and project management. The KPIs that you need to put in place to know that you are successful. And again, how do you measure KPIs and adjust them with the time to be more successful, to save more cost? Further, now the first 3 perspectives for business point of view. The next 3 perspective are technical perspective. So first one is the platform, right? So platform perspective is for technical teams from architects to CTOs who need to develop, maintain, and optimize cloud platform solutions and services. From application development perspective, how to design a cloud native application, whether simply shift the workload to the cloud as lift and shift model, or design a cloud native application from scratch, go serverless, use microservices, so on and so forth. The next one is the security perspective, where we address where security perspective helps security managers, CISO, to manage compliance, identity, and access. Areas like how to authenticate, how to authorize, and know who somebody is. What are the right way to structure organization? How to manage incidents, people, and protect data. How to have a dev test prod type of model which you may not have had before on-prem environment, right? The last one is the operations perspective. When you are on the cloud, right, you need to monitor the system health, the reliability of the system to be there, so that your application is running around the cloud without any interruption. And so that delivers the agile cloud computing operations. So these perspective, the six perspective, are for business and technical point of view, which are covered by the cloud adoption framework. The next, I am going to talk about the cloud factory, right? How we will help you, to take your workload to the cloud. Start from the assessment, right? Whether your application is ready to lift and shift, you need to re-architect it, you need to refactor it, re-platform it, retire it, or this application is not ready to go at all to the cloud, and you need to stay for that application on-prem. So the first step is the assessment, discovery and assessment, where we used to help our customers, right? And by meeting the application owners, the IT teams, discovering the current state and ensuring the readiness for the solution, and mapping the dependencies, right? Sometimes we may need to do in place upgrade and then move to the cloud. Sometimes we simply can take the system to the cloud. The next slide, I'm going to talk more about the process of migration. Then the second step is the planning and designing. So once assessment is complete, we need to design a target architecture, the secure target architecture, where we need to have a complete solution, starting from the connectivity till the application performance delivery, right? We design the target architecture, we help with the detailed scope of work, we help creating and building migration teams. The third step is DevSecOps, right? On-prem, when you are deploying infrastructure, you are going to do a lot of manual activities. When you are going to add one more server or storage, that activity to be repeated, right? But on the cloud, we have agility, we have elasticity, we have scalability, right? So we do write our infrastructure as a code, right? We help users to write Terraform scripts, to cloud formation scripts, so where we identify the reusable contents, we can create a launch dev environment, a prod environment in minutes, or we can migrate from one region, we can switch to another region quickly with the help of codes, right? You need not to log in and do the hours or months of activity. So once you had write the code, you can integrate it with your CI/CD pipeline, so it can be version controlled and properly managed, so that human risks also reduced. Then the next step is the application migration. So your infrastructure is built. Now you need to think of application, whether to rehost, replatform, refactor, retire, or retain, whatever it is. So when you are doing application migration left hand side, that's easy. You are taking your image VM from on-prem, putting to the cloud with the similar configuration. Right? We are helping you with the right sizing on the cloud, so that the cost optimization, performance optimization also being done along with that. Then we help with the Scrum meetings. We create a team, so to do the dependency mapping, to integrate the APIs, databases, or if you have any monolithic application, we help users to re-architect the application from monolithic single server to the microservice or multi-tier architecture. So your database is separate, your application layer is separate, and your web layer is separate. So those kind of approach we follow, we help to customer, and then we are helping customer to secure the incomplete environment, starting from the application, the code testing or code hardening, till the operating system hardening and traffic management and encryption of the data. Then the next step is testing and validation. Once your application is migrated to the cloud, we help in the testing and validating the environment, doing the security testing, VA, VPT on the cloud with the help of tools, few cloud native tools, few cloud marketplace tools. Then we help our customers in last step, that is the cloud operation. This continuous improvement, right? We are knowing that there is nothing which can be built once and can be run forever. So we see the lot of new services coming from the AWS continuously. So how to migrate from one service to another service, optimize the increase the performance, reduce the budget, reduce the cost. So and those kind of help we keep on doing for our customers. So next I talk about this application migration approach, right? So if we are taking this physical server, if you have a physical server on your premise, right, then we help them to convert into VM and then doing a lift and shift. Or if you are running an older version of operating system, the application is running an older version of operating system that is not compatible on the cloud, or that is end of life now or end of support now, then we do a host cloning of that, the VM, and then we upgrade in place upgrade, and then switching to migrating to the cloud. Then third one is the live migration. Your VM is ready, we can simply migrate to the cloud, or it can run in parallel to the cloud. Your environment will be your cloud environment will be extension of your on-prem environment. For example, you have a VMware setup. So VMware setup can be extended to the cloud. So VMware on AWS cloud services can be used. So one VM you are launching, and you can shift the multiple VMs to the one VM or VMs launched to the cloud. So they will be tightly integrated with each other. Then data migration. Data migration helping to move your file servers to the low cost storage on the cloud. Then your database from converting from one database with the help of DMS and schema conversion tool to the cloud native databases like Aurora. And then application containerization. So taking your monolith application, converting to the containers and running in the Fargate, running in the containers on the cloud, so that you need not to worry about the underlying infrastructure, AWS managing those infrastructure. So we help customers from the scratch, from converting physical to virtual images and creating a landing zone on the cloud, a staging area, verifying and designing the security and compliance as per your industry requirement, your domain requirement, and planning your cutover, doing performance and test validation and cutover, you are migrating completely from on-prem to the cloud seamlessly. So one of the service on AWS is that AWS application migration service. If you see on your screen that the source side, operating system, application, databases from left side, with the help of replication agent, we are putting to the staging area on the cloud, putting the cutover, launching a test volume there, test instance there with the data, or we can do run a prod instance as well. So the entire stuff is the flexible, reliable, automated. So AWS application migration service is the primary migration service recommended for lift and shift from AWS, and it automatically converts your AWS server, converts your servers your sources from physical to virtual or cloud infrastructures to run natively on the AWS. So we see this is a flexible, reliable, and highly automable. So what is that? It is directly taking your source, wide range of operating system it supports, databases it supports, taking to the staging area and running to the prod environment. Then this is the example. If I see, suppose I have two servers running on the on-prem. The left side, if you see, two instances on-prem running with their application. So what we do, for example, first one has two external volumes attached, two disks or two partitions, two volumes from the same area, local disks attached. The second one having three volumes, for example. So what we will do, we install the replication agent on that. It keep on replicating the your on-prem environment to the cloud staging subnet, where it is having a image of your server instance and then image of your data. Whenever you want to do a test launch or you want to production launch, you can launch quickly from that replication instance to the to the prod instance. Now I'm quickly moving to the cloud security. So when you see that cloud security is a shared responsibility. So what we help customers? We help customers to execute your part of shared responsibility, right? So anyway, AWS is having a lot of services and they are managing the infrastructure, underlying infrastructure. But when it comes to data, it comes to identity, it comes to application, your infrastructure, it's your responsibility. So we help customers from day one to implement the best policies, best practices, to visualize the issue, the security posture, to risks, control them through the guidance of the best practices, AWS tool services, advisory services. So that's how we help our customers in securing environment data, protecting data from day one. Then we talk about cloud managed services. So just like on-prem, right? You need to monitor the availability, the performance of the application, traffic, do fine-tuning, do patch management. You need to generate reports, dashboards, do the compliance management, follow some compliance or policies. You need to control access. You need to do backup. So lot of things need to be required around the cloud continuously. So few things we help customers to do manage automated way, and for other things continuously we help customers to manage the cloud environment through our managed services. So we have a tool. How do we do that? So we have a tool that name is Clouder, which help customers to have a cloud visibility, complete inventory, the performance, the cost, the consumption, and the utilization, right? And we help them to change to go to the saving plans, to the right sizing. If any instance has to be continuously running and performing well on one kind of instances, that is passed to the users, right, advice to users that if that we converted to reserved instances 1 year, 2 year, or 3 years. Then automation, some security automation, configuration automation, right, and incident response. Those things we are helping our customers with the help of this tool. Then doing the security audit, security posture, doing this fault tolerance, managing the service limit. Suppose in your region, in your account, you have one service which is limited to, let's say, 8 instances. So to increase the limit, with the help of AWS, to reduce that limit based on requirement, to scale infrastructure, all those things we help our customers, so they need not to worry, they need not to think a lot. And we are helping them, their team, to enable to adopt those practices in the environment, and so that they can, our team and the customer's team together can manage the infrastructure. So in the interest of time, I'm coming to just list of the customers who we are delighted to have an opportunity to serve them. So like Virtusa, Aditya Birla, so finance sectors, we have created data lakes, we have deployed backup and DR. We are, as I said, that with the storage competency, we understand how to use AWS cloud for primary storage, for archival storage, for BCDR, and how to use the high performance computing. Like if you have an HPC cluster, how you want to scale the core, how you want to burst the cores on the cloud. Then cloud migration services, we have delivered to various, we have migrated the workload of various customers to the cloud. We have delivered the SCP workload on the cloud. We are providing the cloud managed services for various customers. So like the way we have been helping customers on the cloud. So quickly, I'll talk about 2 case studies and try to summarize in next 1 minute, because we are behind the schedule now. So TeamLease, where we have migrated the homegrown Microsoft application, which were used by around 3,500 plus users, to the AWS cloud. Right, we delivered this project within a period of around 1 year with a team of 12 members. So we have migrated around 0.5 petabyte of data, 100 plus instances. We have deployed the proper security there, so that the data is secured, protected. Then what the benefit organization had. So you can see the benefit section below on the screen, that around 30% reductions in TCO compared to on-prem and with the better performance. Then auto scaling, right? Secure access and 67% less unplanned downtime. If you are running a data center, there are various dependencies and downtime increases sometimes goes beyond control. So all those issues were resolved with the right designed and right architecture on the AWS cloud. The second is the Meritor. This is a Fortune 500 company based out of US. So here again, we have migrated from on-premise to cloud, and then we are managing the infrastructure through our NOC center. So there are 73 applications we have migrated from the IBM data center to the cloud, and we created a DC and DR solution, around 500 instances, approximate 1 petabyte of storage we have migrated to the cloud. And the best benefit was that 40% reduction in the operational cost from day one. It was not you have to wait for a certain period to make it break even. No, this 40% reduction in operational cost from the day one. And second, the DC and DR application. So which I'm going to talk about this with one example very quickly here. So suppose you want to start with a cloud journey today. So what is the first thing in your mind? So suppose you have multiple offices, you are sharing the data, you are maintaining the various file servers, various storage, right? And you are managing secured connectivity, a lot of things you are managing. Here's the simple thing: you can have AWS storage gateway configuration, either in terms of a VM or a server running, and then you can have a S3 low cost S3 storage that is highly durable storage, and data is very durable. 11 nines of availability and data availability is provided. So you can connect, you can store the data there, you can access through to AWS gateway from any offices, encrypted data access over your normal internet connectivity. The next hybrid architecture I'll talk about, that the similar way. You want to move your files, you want to migrate from your existing native tape backup to the AWS S3 backup with the similar solution with the using AWS storage gateway hybrid architecture. You can move that there. You can migrate your applications with the help of other tools like AWS migration services, Cloud Endure, and few others. So with this, I'll take a pause here. If any question and answer, we can discuss now.
Thank you, Mr. Pandey. So before we end today's session, ladies and gentlemen, I request all of you to please help us with one last set of polls. I hope you like the session and the speakers. So kindly share your feedback through the questions present on your screen in just a moment. Everyone, I request you to please cast in your polls. Like as usual, we have 1 minute for these two set of questions. The first question is, how useful was the content of this webinar for you? And the second is, how would you rate our speakers that were presenting today? So I request all of you to please participate in these set of polls. 20 seconds have already sort of been passed and a few seconds more remaining. And if you haven't cast in your poll yet, I request you to please do it right now. It will help us understand and evaluate the data a lot more closely and ensure a greater experience, a better experience for you next time. "15 seconds more. In case you haven't done yet, please ensure you set your options in, cast in your poll. Well, that's it. With this, we bring today's virtual conference to a close. Today's session wouldn't have been a success without the active participation of all our speakers and certainly all of you, our audience members. I would like to thank each one of you for taking the time out and being a part of this virtual conference today. A special thanks to Locus and AWS for their incredible support to this initiative, without whom this conference wouldn't have been possible. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Please take care and continue to stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.